Hey you! Yeah you! I see you doom scrolling Netflix looking for something to watch. You're not going to find anything to watch. Not because there isn't anything new to watch, but because you're inevitably going to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Supernatural again for the millionth time. And I get that. Sometimes committing to a new show is hard. For me personally, I know I can scroll past a show I know I should watch. I've heard nothing but great things, but I won't watch it until someone else tells me I should. Whether it be a glowing recommendation from an internet reviewer, or a friend who won't stop pestering me until I give in to watching it. Actually, usually I'm that guy pestering people to watch shows, but still. Today I am here to help you break that cycle. Kind of like how I hope someone would do that for me. And hopefully find you something new to watch. So what I'm going to do is break down every show that I watched in 2023 that I thought was good, and I think is deserving of other people knowing that that's good. So this is my best of 2023 in television. I hope you enjoy.
What's it like? Always knowing the truth.
Coming in at the start of the year, we saw the release of Poker Face, created by everybody's favourite Star Wars director. Poker Face is what happens when you put a real budget behind a case of the week murder mystery series. The series stars Natasha Lyonne as Charlie Cale, and Charlie is able to detect when somebody lies to her, or when somebody lies in general. And despite that premise being a very easy way to write yourself into a corner with very samey outcomes, the show does a fantastic job of making every episode feel unique. And the show is very well acted. The locales are gorgeous, and the show does a great job of giving us three-dimensional characters, despite the fact that we'll likely never see most of them ever again. I honestly think this show could be enjoyed by almost anyone. It's not very high stake, it's just a good time. I think if you're a fan of the movie Knives Out, then I reckon you'll enjoy this one.
Excited to get into this knife fight?
Succession ended its stellar 4-year run this year, and I could talk for ages about how great this show is. And I mean ages. So I'll be leaving that to its own standalone video in the future. For now though, if you like a dialogue heavy show with fantastic acting that is equal parts hilarious and devastating, I highly recommend you watch this one.
Will you turn that thing off, please?
How's it not making you insane? I don't mind it.
Your shirt says original birth.
Yeah, it's a printing mistake. Collector's item.
The Bear finished its second season this year, and holy cow. I don't even know where to start with this one. The first season of The Bear was a good show that occasionally showed moments of brilliance. The second season is a brilliant show that occasionally shows moments of perfection. The Bear is like Succession's anxiety-ridden cousin. The show follows Carmi, played by Jeremy Allen White, an award-winning high-class chef who inherits his brother's sandwich shop after he passes away. And the shop is just a fantastic location for the show. And the characters, oh man, I love the characters in the show. And like me, you will hate most of them when you start watching. The Bear is an absolute masterclass in character writing. And the second season of The Bear features 2 absolutely phenomenal episodes back to back in episodes 6 and 7, titled Fishes and Forks respectively. These are not only 2 great episodes of this show, but some of the best episodes of television I've ever watched. And I don't want to oversell it. Episode 6 is just an absolutely anxiety-filled nightmare episode, similar to the episode Review from the first season, except we're swapping the insane kitchen environment for an even more insane family Thanksgiving one. And then there is Forks, and it could just be due to the placement of the episode, because an episode of television where you want to feel good was certainly needed after the nightmare that is Fishes. But this is where the show pulls off its most amazing trick, making Richie the most likable character in the show. And when you start this show, you will hate Richie. For most of the show, he seems like a lost cause. And throughout the first season, you see small glimpses of humanity within Richie, and what you just kind of want to relate to him. But the fact that they take their time with Richie just makes it all the much better once he finally starts to develop. This is the episode they finish the job, and fucking hell, do they do a great job, because it never feels like his character development is forced. The Bear is worth watching just for this episode alone, and I highly recommend The Bear as a TV show. Because if it keeps on this trajectory, oh man, it's going to be a modern classic.
All right, make this quick. I've got underlings to bully. I'm busy.
There are men outside with guns.
Some backup might be handy.
Well, I'm busy.
Okay, thanks.
I need a team of good agents. But I just have the slow horses.
Slow Horses is a British spy thriller based on the Slough House book series, and it just wrapped up its third season a couple of days ago of writing the script, and it was pretty freaking great. I only discovered this show somewhat recently, and I was hooked right from the beginning. The show follows the department of MI5, made exclusively of screw-ups. Led by Jackson Lamb, who is portrayed to perfection by Gary Oldman, who absolutely steals every scene he is in. I do like how they make him somewhat a bit scarce for the first few episodes because it really gives the rest of the Slow Horses time to develop before he takes over. And the show for the first 2 seasons feels pretty grounded and gives a good feeling that no character is really safe. The third season, however, feels like it stretches the believability that the first 2 seasons had. While it has an extremely interesting set piece, set during the final 2 episodes, the directing of the action made the whole thing feel a little too unrealistic. That being said, it did not take away from the fantastic writing, the performances, and I'm still as invested in the story as ever. So, despite the third season being a bit weaker than the first 2, I still recommend giving Slow Horses a go. And I think if you're a fan of spy thrillers, you'll like this one.
Oh, thank God we heard the screaming.
You picked a bad spot. I've seen a lot of people pushed to their edge. You ever wonder if maybe that's the point?
From is a horror show featuring Michael from Lost, made by some of the people who produced Lost, and has a very similar premise to Lost. So the easiest way to describe this show is, what if Lost, but horror? From is very grim, very gory, and surprisingly tense and scary at times. Now, unlike a lot of the shows I'll be talking about today, this one is a bit of a mixed bag. When From is at its best, it is a uniquely horrifying experience. But when it's at its worst, it is frustrating and slow. Characters communicate vital information to each other seemingly at random. The plot will just not progress at all for episodes at a time. Like, a lot of the characters will just get on your nerves. But what I will say is this show really does reward you for the time you put in, despite sometimes not feeling like it will. Harold Perrineau and Elizabeth Saunders are always entertaining to watch in this show, and quite frankly, they carry the show. The show isn't afraid to get weird, and it isn't afraid to get disturbing. Season 2, despite a great start, really suffers with its pacing in episodes 3, 4, and 5. After that, though, the show manages to string together a fantastic run of episodes to the end of the season. Season 3 will air sometime in 2024, and I think if they can fix the pacing of this show a little, then we will be in for a real treat. This show feels like it's the only one of its kind currently airing, and as I said before, if you are a fan of Lost, I think this might be right up your alley, and is probably the closest a show has ever gotten to the same kind of feeling as Lost.
Rob and I came together to purchase a football club.
Welcome to Wrexham is a documentary series about Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Ryan Reynolds from, well, you don't need me to tell you what Ryan Reynolds has been in. Rob and Ryan buy a failing soccer club, or a football club, depending on which part of the world you're from. I wouldn't have bothered to watch this show if I wasn't already like a massive fan of these actors. It's Always Sunny is one of my favourite sitcoms of all time, so I'm just not a fan of soccer. But goddamn did this show make me care about it. If you have never followed a sports team in your life and wondered why people like sports or how people get so passionate about things like soccer, I highly recommend you watch this because it will make you understand. You see this through the lenses of Rob and Ryan as they buy this football club with the hopes of making money on a joint project together, but I bet not even they thought they were going to care this much as they learned more about the football club. The Wrexham community is the heart and soul of not only the club, but the documentary itself. And this is where the show really does start to shine. And it's when it takes a break from the football club and it goes into the lives of the supporters and the everyday people who just love this club and they love their town. And it's really hard not to just root for them, honestly. The show isn't afraid to tackle some serious subjects around the sport like mental health or hooliganism. Documentary finished its second season this year, and it was fantastic, and I think I might even be a Wrexham supporter for life now.
Here we go again. I can't wink.
Since 2019, Mitch McTaggart has been breaking down the last year in Australian television in a yearly special. It's a little bit like an episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, but instead of unfunny Photoshop gags, Mitch has actual jokes. And the reason I kind of compare this with John Oliver is that Mitch McTaggart really gets into the nitty-gritty, and while the majority of the show is comedy, he isn't afraid to shelve the laughs and get a bit more serious and take a look at things like the absolutely abhorrent state of the Australian news media. My personal favourite from this year's special was the tracking the lifespan of a joke segment. It shows how garbage the quality of Australian news journalism can get, whether intentional or not. Mitch McTaggart also released a season of The Backside of Television, which uses the same format as the yearly special, but features very well-researched deep dives on topics in Australian TV history. Things such as the weird rivalry between Sesame Street and Play School, or a weird little bingo game show that aired on primetime television that was just like a complete scam. This show is criminally underrated, and I feel like if you live in Australia, it should be mandatory viewing. If you live outside of Australia though, you'll probably get a good laugh out of our horribly amateur television. It's a good time, and it's also not. So please give this one a watch. I cannot recommend it enough.
Vivian, you now custodian of his cliffside property.
Really, Vivian? Really? I was the one that visited. You've never even been there.
Mum, I don't think she realizes.
People come here to...
Yeah, it's been that way for a while.
Walt got at least one a week.
Please don't! Why not? Look, this is my new backyard!
Totally Completely Fine is about a troubled girl played by Thomasin McKenzie, or the girl from Last Night in Soho, which is where everyone knows her from. She inherits her grandfather's house that resides on a cliff where a lot of people go to unalive themselves off of. Despite its very dark premise, the show is really funny and it's really, really good. And the show is filled with great characters. While I don't think it tackles all of its themes with 100% accuracy, I never feel like they make fun of the serious mental health struggles the characters go through. As far as I know, there won't be a season 2 of this show, and I would like to see more of this one, but because I feel that there is so much more story to tell, but I'm satisfied with what we got. I really enjoyed this one. This show was a very underrated gem, and I've heard nobody talk about this one, so I think it flew under a lot of people's radars, so I really recommend this one. And as long as the content in this one doesn't make you uncomfortable, I really recommend this one.
Monsters are an inescapable reality that we must learn to survive.
You knew these things existed?
This is your legacy.
Someone at Legendary Pictures managed to successfully pitch a TV show about expanding the lore of the Monsterverse. This show looks very expensive, so either the executives that greenlit this were dipshits, or whoever pitched this show can sell sand in the desert. Either way, this show is surprisingly good. I think like 70% of the reason I like this show so much is because the main theme song just kicks so much ass. This show though, like all the movies in the Monsterverse, it has issues. The story is just kind of like all over the place, not just in quality, but quite literally. The show is taking place over different generations, which is why we have Wyatt and Kurt Russell playing the same character. And actually, that's quite a bit of fun, seeing a father and son play the same role. Anything to do with these characters is usually pretty great, but your enjoyment of the show is going to rest on whether or not you care about Kate, Kentaro, and May, who are our main characters. I find I really like Kate and Kentaro. Their relationship is pretty unique, but I find May to be a little bit hit or miss. Now, these character stories already have to do a lot of heavy lifting because it's filling in the gaps when you're waiting for all the cool monster shit to happen. So I feel like a lot of the wider audiences are just not going to connect with these characters for that reason alone. But I do. The show kind of makes the whole universe that they're creating here feel a bit more real, because there are real characters that inhabit it. And when it comes to the cool monster shit, yeah, it's pretty fucking cool. It looks great, and I hate to think how much this show cost to make. The visuals are very, very good. And look, this show isn't going to test your morals, nor is it really going to play with any very serious themes. The closest it probably comes to is PTSD, but it's Hollywood PTSD. But not every show has to do that, and Monarch knows what it is, and I'm really enjoying myself with this one. Probably more than I should be. Bit of a guilty pleasure, I'd say. If you're a fan of any of the MonsterVerse movies, you know, Godzilla, Kong, Godzilla vs. Kong, this one's for you.
20 years ago, the world fell to shit.
It's gonna be fun.
Peekaboo!
I never expected this show to be good. Now, it's not great, but it's actually just a really fun show. I came into Twisted Metal thinking it was going to suck, and boy was I wrong. Like Monarch, don't go in expecting anything too great, but it's just a solid show. But it's kind of nuts to me that an adaptation of Twisted Metal is better than 90% of other video game adaptation. Twisted Metal with Anthony Mackie. This show is a hard show to recommend because I don't actually know who this was even made for. Twisted Metal has never seemed like a very marketable IP, and the last Twisted Metal game was like a decade ago. Despite the existence of the show being an absolute anomaly to me, the show is very good, and I would give it a try if you just want to turn your brain off for a bit and have some fun.
If you don't think there's hope for the world, why bother going on?
Keep going for family.
I'm not family.
No. Your cargo.
I did not like The Last of Us, the game. I thought the show was amazing. As someone who liked the story of the game, but not the actual game itself, it feels like this show was made for me. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey are great as Ellie and Joel. They really do embody these characters. I also really loved that one episode with Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett. And from my understanding, this isn't faithful to the games, but the story was just really beautifully told. I really couldn't care less. Unfortunately, I feel like the show kind of rushes the ending for me. I could have used maybe just one more episode near the end there. I just would have liked to have seen them flesh out Ellie and Joel's relationship just a little bit more. And maybe the ending would have just carried a little more weight. But this shouldn't take away from the fact that this show is really, really good. Obviously, if you're a fan of the game, you'll probably like this show. Also, I would say if you're a fan of the first season or two of The Walking Dead, you will like this show.
Berkman, you got a visitor.
I'm trying to change him.
You better run for your life.
Barry finished its 4-season run this year, and wow, what a great show. Bill Hader proves that not only can he really act, but write and direct as well. Barry is such a unique show, and I feel like the less said about this one the better, because I believe it just needs to be experienced. I will say though that Anthony Carrigan as NoHo Hank, absolute scene stealer, and he really gets to show off his skills as an actor in the 4th season. Barry is at times very funny, very dark, and it can get very surreal. I think you will really like the show if you're a fan of that episode of Atlanta where Alfred is lost in the forest, or if you're like a fan of the Teddy Perkins episode as well. That's probably because Hiro Murai directed that episode, and there's also directed a few episodes of Barry as well. But that's kind of the best way I can describe the kind of show that Barry is. There's so many good performances in this show. I can't recommend this show enough, honestly.
When they say jury of your peers, I think that's accurate. Me?
This is the most unorthodox trial that I presided over.
This literally feels like reality TV.
Oh.
Jury duty is coming in right at the death here. I literally watched this show as I was writing the script for this video. So if you don't know what jury duty is, it is a reality TV show about a bunch of people serving on a jury for a trial. but something is off. Everyone involved in this trial and the jury are an actor, except for one man. This is Ronald, and he thinks he is serving on a real jury for a real trial. I cannot imagine how much effort it took to make this show, and how so much of it hinged on one person not giving the whole thing away. But it seems like the producers and the actors all knew when to hold back, and the conclusion to this series is very satisfying. Also, if Ronald wasn't like the best kind of dude ever, this show could have taken a much different direction, and honestly could have been a disaster. If you've ever seen Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal, then I think this one will be for you. And that is it for my favourite shows of the year. I've got some other shows that I really liked that I'm going to rattle off really quick that weren't my favourites, but I still think that they are worth watching. Rick and Morty is still chugging along after losing Justin Roiland. I thought the new season was pretty good, much better than the last, and the new voice actors are great. It feels a little off in the first episode, but after that I kind of adjusted to them, and it's almost like nothing's ever changed. The Other Two is a pretty great comedy that just finished its run this year. This show was a nice surprise, but I feel like in the third season they kind of pushed Carrie's character a little too far into unlikable territory. I will say that the scene at the fake restaurant had me in absolute hysterics, and it might have been the hardest I've laughed at anything this year. I always like seeing Jason Segel in things. I feel like he was the best actor and the best character on How I Met Your Mother. And if I come across something that Jason Segel is in, I usually watch it. So Shrinking is a comedy about moving on from grief. The cast is super charismatic, and when I started watching this, I thought Harrison Ford looked like he was phoning it in a little bit, but he actually does get some chances to actually act later on in the show, which is nice to see. And it's nice to see him out of the Hollywood blockbuster bubble where he looks like he really doesn't give a shit. Honestly, I just want to spend more time with these characters. They're a lot of fun, and this show is really funny. Stephen Wen is a great actor, and Ali Wong is also a great actor. I hate the characters they play, but that's probably the point. Beef isn't the show I thought it would be from the trailer I watched, but what I got was still pretty good. Whenever the two main characters are on screen together, this show really excels because their chemistry is off the charts. I think season 3 of Ted Lasso was good. It wasn't as good as the first two seasons. I think it might have been the extended episode order that hurt the pacing of the show a little bit, and I think Keely's story arc might have suffered the most because of this. While I didn't hate her story arc between her and her boss, I feel like it was a little underbaked and cliche. Still very well acted though. On the other hand, I did find Rebecca's arc this season to be fantastic. And if this show does continue on in some kind of form, Hannah Waddingham absolutely has the chops to lead it. I cannot overstate how fantastic I thought she was this season. Gen V is a spin-off show of The Boys. It's good. It's got that edginess that the main show has, and it's well acted. The plot's okay. I'm starting to get a little worried about where this whole franchise is going though, and I feel like the more it goes on, the more it risks becoming that thing that it is constantly parodying. Speaking of that thing that it's constantly parodying, Loki, Season 2, it was good. Like all the other Marvel TV shows, the pacing was just all over the place, and it feels like that they've kind of sanded off most of the unique things about Loki's personality, and he just kind of feels like the generic hero character now. Still, Loki and Mobius's bromance is still very much the winning formula in the show, and the addition of Ke Huy Quan to the cast is a very welcome one. It's a good time, but I feel like it is a more of a turn your brain off kind of show. And that's all the shows from 2023 that I can personally recommend. Now, I still have a few shows that I still need to get around to this year. I've heard Fall of the House of Usher is great. I was a big fan of Mike Flanagan's other show, Midnight Mass. Silo has been getting pretty good reviews. I'm still making my way through the Scott Pilgrim animated show. And I'm a Virgo has also been making a lot of people's top 10 lists, and I think I might have to check that one out. All these shows are on my list of things I need to get around to watching, but I just haven't yet. I've also watched the first few episodes of Fargo Season 5, but I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna watch it all at once all the episodes have finally come out. What I've seen has been pretty good though. 2023 has been a pretty great year for TV. I hope that there is something here for you to watch. But if you think I've missed something, please leave a comment. I'm always looking for new shows to watch, and with now more than ever, with there being 100 streaming services, it's pretty easy for something to slip through the cracks. So let me know what your favourite TV show was this year, and let me know if you found a show that you liked from this video. So thank you very much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing if you're new. I've also opened up a community Discord if you feel like coming in and having a chat. This video was a bit of a departure from my normal stuff, but I kind of wanted to get into the groove of talking about TV again before I tackle the Succession video, which should be coming sometime soon. In the meantime though, we might be taking a look at another game or two. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you for 500 subscribers. Wow. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.